Welcome back to the deep dive. I've been looking forward to this one because, frankly, looking at the stack of research you sent over, this one feels personal. We're tackling a topic today that is technically a business case study, a very grim one. But for a specific generation, this is a sensory memory. It's a smell. It's a specific taste.
It really is. It is one of those rare business stories that you can actually smell the moment you start talking about it.
Exactly. You walk in, say, 1996.
Mm-hmm.
You push open those heavy glass doors, and you are immediately hit with that wall of savory, roasted air.
Oh, yeah.
It's warm, it smells like herbs and poultry fat. You look behind the counter, and you see rows and rows of golden chickens spinning on those spits.
The rotisserie, the heartbeat of the operation.
Rotisserie. And then you look at the sides, the mashed potatoes with that little indented pool of gravy in the middle, the mac and cheese that was always impossibly creamy-like, scientifically creamy.
It had to be, yeah.
The creamed spinach, and of course, the cornbread.
Which was basically cake, let's be honest with ourselves here.
It was absolutely cake, and it was delicious.
Mm.
We are, of course, talking about Boston Market.
Mm-hmm.
Or, if your memory goes back just a little further, Boston Chicken.
A brand that went from being the absolute darling of Wall Street, the rocket ship of the 90s, to a company that, as of late 2024, has essentially ceased to exist in the physical world.
It is a shocking decline. I mean, usually these big chains fade away slowly. They consolidate, they shrink, but they, hang around.
Right. There are still a few locations left here or there.
But looking at the data here, this isn't just a story about a restaurant getting less popular. This is a story of a total species extinction. We're talking about a brand that had over 1,200 locations at its peak, and now
It's staggering.
we're looking at fewer than 30 locations left in the entire United States.
It is a statistical wipeout. And what makes this deep dive so interesting and, frankly, a bit dark is that the collapse happens in phases that are almost perfect lessons in what not to do in business.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Icarus phase in the 90s, flying too close to the sun with debt, and then you have the zombie phase, which ends in what I can only describe as total corporate anarchy.
Anarchy is a strong word, but looking at these court documents, the Gossamer defense, the stop work orders, it fits. It really does.
It does.
So our mission today is to trace this arc. We need to understand the financial engineering that built the empire, the identity crisis that confused it, and the mismanagement. Newton, Massachusetts.
Newton is a suburb just outside of Boston, a fairly affluent area. And to understand why Boston Chicken, as it was called then, was such a big deal, you have to look at the landscape of American dining in 1985.
Okay.
It's hard to imagine now because we are just drowning in options, but back then, the dichotomy was very strict.
Right. You had fast food,
Right.
burgers, fries, grease, paper wrappers. Speed was the priority.
Yeah.
Health was
Not a factor.
not even a consideration.
Yeah, exactly. And on the other side, you had sit-down restaurants, tablecloths, tipping, a 90-minute commitment.
A whole evening.
Right. There was a massive gap in the middle. The term fast casual simply didn't exist. Panera didn't exist. Chipotle didn't exist.
So Stephen Kolo and Arthur Kors, the founders, they weren't just opening a chicken shack. They were stumbling onto a new category entirely.
They identified what the industry now calls home meal replacement, or HMR. The sociological timing was perfect. You have to look at the demographics of the mid-'80s.
Right.
You had a massive increase in dual-income households. Moms were entering the workforce in record numbers.
So both parents are working. They come home at 6 p.m. They are exhausted. The kids are hungry.
Precisely. They don't want to... I mean, who has the energy for a roast chicken on a Tuesday? But they also feel a tremendous amount of guilt about feeding their kids a bucket of deep-fried chicken or a burger.
Of course.
They want something that looks and feels like a Sunday dinner, but with the speed of a drive-thru.
So Boston Chicken offers the absolution of guilt. It's rotisserie. It's healthy, or at least because it's not fried, we tell ourselves it's healthy.
Right, it feels healthier.
It's plated like a real meal with vegetables and cornbread.
It was the perfect product for that specific moment in American culture. And the concept worked. It worked so well that when they decided to scale, they didn't just grow, they exploded.
Okay.
And this brings us to the first major technical insight of this case study, the financing of the expansion.
I was reading through the financials and the notes, and it looks complicated. It feels like a house of cards. They weren't just selling chicken to make money. They were selling the idea of selling chicken.
That's a great way to put it. In the early 90s, the company came under the leadership of George Nedaff, who, by the way, is a legend in this space.
Okay.
He's the guy who actually discovered the original Kentucky Fried Chicken concept and helped expand it. He saw Boston Chicken and thought, I can do it again.
Okay, so they have the pedigree. But how do you fund opening 1,000 stores in just a few years? That requires an enormous amount of capital.
Well, they used a very aggressive franchising model, but it wasn't standard franchising.
What do you mean?
In a normal franchise agreement, you, the franchisee, go to a bank, take out a loan, build the store, and pay the parent company a royalty.
Right. The parent company takes very little risk. They're just collecting a check.
Exactly. But Boston Chicken wanted speed. They wanted to capture the market before anyone else could copy the rotisserie concept. So they set up a system where they would lend money to the franchisees to open the store.
They would lend the money.
They created a separate entity to finance these franchise partners.
Wait, hold on. So Boston Chicken records revenue from development fees and royalties from the franchisees.
But those fees are being paid for by loans that Boston Chicken effectively guaranteed or facilitated?
That sounds like a circular revenue stream. They are lending money to people to pay themselves fees, which they then book as revenue to show Wall Street growth, to raise more money, to lend to more franchisees.
You've got it. It's a loop.
Huh.
And on a quarterly report, it looks fantastic because the revenue line is skyrocketing.
Wow.
They opened 500 stores in barely 2 years. The stock price was soaring. People called it the rocket ship.
Right.
But the fundamental cash flow, the actual profit from selling drumsticks and cream spinach, wasn't necessarily supporting that level of debt service.
It reminds me a bit of the dot-com bubble or even the subprime mortgage crisis on a micro scale. If the underlying asset, the chicken sales, slows down even a little bit, the whole debt structure collapses because the new loans stop coming in.
And that's exactly what happened. But before the crash, they tried to innovate their way out of the corner they painted themselves into.
Okay.
They realized that while they had built a massive footprint, they had a problem with the product itself.
The chicken problem.
Yes. This is where we get the 1995 pivot, the name change. From Boston Chicken to Boston Market.
It seems subtle, but looking back, it feels like a desperate move to widen the net.
Well, they hit what we call a usage barrier.
Or usage barrier.
Yeah. If a family of 4 is deciding on dinner and 3 want chicken, but 1 hates chicken, the Boston Chicken name is a veto. You don't go.
The veto vote.
Veto vote.
Yeah.
You go somewhere with a broader menu.
So they had to become a market. They need to offer everything.
Exactly. So February 1995, they decide to expand the menu significantly. They add turkey, meatloaf, and ham.
The meatloaf. I forgot about the meatloaf. It's actually pretty good in a, cafeteria kind of way.
It was iconic for a while, but think about the operational complexity they just added.
Yeah.
Cooking a rotisserie chicken is one process. It spins, it cooks, you take it off. Now you are managing supply chains for turkey, ham, and meatloaf. You are managing prep for all these different proteins, plus the sides, all in a kitchen originally designed just for chicken.
It sounds like a nightmare. And the branding followed the menu. In fall of 1995, they officially changed the signs to Boston Market.
Right. The logic was, we are a market now, we have options. But here is a fun little detail from the corporate filings.
Okay.
Even though they changed the signs on the door to Boston Market in 95, the corporate entity was still called Boston Chicken, Inc. until 1997.
So the paperwork couldn't keep up with the marketing department.
Not at all. And this era, the mid-90s, was really the peak of their throw everything at the wall strategy. They weren't just adding meats, they were trying to capture the lunch crowd too.
Because a half chicken with 2 sides is a heavy lunch.
It is.
You need a nap after that.
It's not a power lunch, no. So in 1996, they launched the Boston Carver sandwiches. Chicken, turkey, ham, meatloaf, all in sandwich form.
I remember the ads for these. They were pushing them hard.
And then because it was the 90s and everything had to be bigger and bolder.
In 1997, the Extreme Carver sandwiches.
Extreme. Nothing dates a product to the late 90s faster than the word extreme.
Did it come with a Mountain Dew?
It might as well have. It was larger portions of meat and cheese.
Yeah.
They were trying to compete with the sub shops and the delis. They wanted to be your dinner spot, your lunch spot.
Yeah.
And did you catch the bagel part in the notes?
I did. This actually blew my mind. I had no idea. Boston Chicken was responsible for Einstein Bros. Bagels.
Yeah.
That feels like a glitch in the simulation.
It's a forgotten chapter.
Yep.
In 1995, they acquired 3 smaller bagel chains, Noah's, Bagel & Bagel, and Brackman Brothers. and rolled them up into Einstein Bros.
So they created the Einstein Bros brand.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The strategy was share of stomach. They wanted you for breakfast with bagels, lunch with sandwiches, and dinner with chicken.
It sounds ambitious, but looking at it now, it looks incredibly unfocused.
That's a good way to put it.
You are running a massive debt load. Your core business is facing saturation. And instead of perfecting the chicken operations, you are trying to learn the bagel business from scratch.
It was classic corporate hubris. They thought they had the magic touch. But gravity always wins, and math always wins.
Right.
By 1998, the debt bubble burst. The interest payments on all those loans exceeded the cash flow from operations. The circular financing stopped working because they couldn't open new stores fast enough to pay for the old ones.
And that led to the first big crash.
Chapter 11 bankruptcy filed in 1998. They closed many stores. The stock, which had been a darling of Wall Street, collapsed. It was a humiliating fall.
Okay, so let's pause on Chapter 11. For the listener, this doesn't mean the company dies immediately, right? It's not a funeral yet.
All right. Chapter 11 is reorganization. It shields you from creditors while you try to restructure your debts. It's different from Chapter 7, which is liquidation, selling everything and turning off the lights.
Okay.
Boston Market thought they could restructure, but they ended up getting bought.
And the buyer is the most confusing part of this entire timeline for me. May 2000, McDonald's.
The Golden Arches.
Why? I mean, McDonald's is burgers and fries. It's assembly line speed. Boston Market is slow-roasted, home-style food. Operationally, they are opposites. Was McDonald's trying to get into the rotisserie game?
Not really, no. If you look at the acquisition analysis from that time, it wasn't about the food.
What was it about?
It was a real estate play.
Location, location, location.
Think back to that aggressive expansion in the early 90s.
All those loans.
Exactly. Because they had so much cash from the loans, Boston Market paid top dollar for premium corner locations in high-traffic suburbs. They owned the leases on some of the best dirt in America.
So McDonald's looked at the map and saw 1,000 prime locations.
Exactly. They figured, we can buy the whole company, take the best locations and convert them into McDonald's restaurants and figure out what to do with the rest later. It was a land bank acquisition.
But they didn't convert them all immediately. They kept the brand running.
No, and this is where it gets interesting. McDonald's is a very disciplined operator. They are the masters of efficiency. They actually stabilized the Boston Market brand for a while. They cleaned up the operations, they streamlined the kitchens, they kept it running.
They even tried to take it international. I saw in the notes they went to Australia.
They did. 9 stores in Sydney between 2002 and 2004.
I'm trying to picture a Boston Market in Sydney. Did they serve the cornbread? Did they have the meatloaf?
They tried to replicate the menu, but it failed. Competitive pressures was the official reason. But the rumor is that the Australian palate just didn't resonate with the very American style of comfort sides.
Too heavy.
It was too heavy, perhaps, yeah.
And true to form, when they closed the Sydney-Boston markets, what did they become?
McDonald's. The real estate strategy in action.
Of course. So McDonald's holds them for 7 years. They stabilize it, but they don't really grow it. Eventually, McDonald's decides, we don't want to run a rotisserie chain anymore. So in 2007, they sell to Sun Capital Partners.
Enter the private equity era.
Now, generally, when I hear private equity buys a restaurant chain, I assume 2 things are about to happen: cost cutting and asset stripping.
That's the playbook.
What was the Sun Capital era like?
It was surprisingly long. They held it from 2007 to 2020. That's an eternity in PE years.
It really is.
Usually it's a 3 to 5 year flip. Buy it, cut costs, make the numbers look good, sell it. Sun Capital tried to make it work, but they suffered from a massive identity crisis. They spent a decade trying to find a reason for people to come back.
I remember seeing ads for ribs during this time.
Yes. In 2013, they opened their first new location in 7 years, trying to restart growth. By 2015, they added ribs. In 2018, they tried rotisserie prime rib.
Prime rib. At a drive-through speed place, that feels ambitious and risky.
It was desperate. They were throwing things at the wall to see what stuck. They even did baby back ribs with sweet baby Ray sauce in 2020.
Wow.
But while they were tinkering with the menu inside the restaurant, something else was happening that would eventually hurt the restaurant significantly.
The grocery store pivot.
This is a crucial distinction for the listener. If you see a Boston Market frozen lasagna or chicken pot pie in the supermarket today, that has nothing to do with the failing restaurants.
Wait, really? Because the logo is exactly the same, the font is the same?
The branding is identical, but the rights to the frozen food brand were sold off. They are now owned by a company called Belizio Foods. They are a massive conglomerate that makes frozen foods for lots of brands.
So the brand Boston Market has bifurcated. You have the zombie restaurant chain and you have the thriving frozen food brand.
Exactly. And in a cruel twist of irony, the success of the frozen food actually helped kill the
It
restaurant.
tells a substitution.
Yeah.
If you want the taste, you can just get it at home.
Think about it. If you have a craving for the taste of Boston Market, that specific spice blend, that gravy, you can get it for $3.50 in the freezer aisle at Kroger.
Right.
Or you can drive to the restaurant, park, wait in line, and pay $12.
Plus, the grocery stores themselves changed. Costco, Whole Foods, Kroger, they all started installing their own massive rotisserie ovens.
The famous $4.99 set Costco chicken.
Ah, the death knell.
That is a loss leader. Costco loses money on every chicken just to get you in the door to buy a TV. Boston Market, whose entire business model was selling chicken for a profit, couldn't compete with someone selling it for a loss.
So they were getting squeezed from the freezer aisle by their own brand name and from the deli counter by cheaper, more convenient options.
By 2019, Sun Capital closed 45 locations. And in their press release, they explicitly blamed grocery store competition. They admitted the supermarket had beaten them.
Before we move to the final collapse, I want to take a detour into the legal weeds. The outline mentions a trademark war with Boston Pizza.
Yes.
This feels like a subplot from a sitcom, but it apparently had real consequences.
It's a fascinating case study in international IP law. So you have Boston Market in the U.S., and in Canada, there is a massive casual dining chain called Boston Pizza.
Which I assume has nothing to do with the city of Boston.
Very little. It was founded in Edmonton by a Greek immigrant. But in 2002, when Boston Market tried to expand into Canada, Boston Pizza sued them.
Because they used the word Boston.
Essentially. They claimed their trademark on Boston Pizza gave them rights to the word Boston in the context of restaurants in Canada.
That seems wild. It's a major American city. Can you trademark a city?
Well, no, not usually.
Can I open a restaurant called New York Tacos and sue anyone else who uses New York?
Generally, no. And that was Boston Market's defense. They argued the term was descriptive, not distinctive. They said, look, Boston Pizza just describes the style of pizza. It's not a unique brand identifier.
But is Boston-style pizza a thing? I'm from the East Coast and I've never heard of it. I know New York-style, Chicago-style, Detroit-style.
Legally, it didn't matter. Boston Pizza had the market dominance in Canada. They fought for years. And in 2008, they settled. And the terms were humiliating for Boston Market.
What were the terms?
Boston Market agreed not to use the words Boston or Boston Market for any restaurants in Canada for 5 years.
So if they wanted to open a store, they'd have to call it Newton Market.
Or just the Market, or Chicken Market. It effectively killed their ability to expand north of the border.
Wow.
It's a reminder that a brand is only as strong as its legal protection in the specific jurisdiction you are operating in. You might be a giant in the U.S., but in Canada, you might be infringing on a pizza place from Edmonton.
That is wild. Okay, let's fast forward. We move past the trademark wars. We are in 2020. The world is changing. The pandemic hits, and Boston Market changes hands again.
This is the turning point. This is where the story shifts from struggling brand to disaster.
April 2020, Sun Capital finally offloads the brand. They sell it to Engage Brands, LLC.
Which is part of the Rohan Group, owned by a businessman named Jignesh J. Pandya.
Now, usually when a new owner comes in, there is a honeymoon period. Maybe some investment, a new coat of paint. What happened here?
The exact opposite. Buying a buffet-style restaurant chain at the start of a respiratory pandemic seems like a contrarian bet, sure.
A bit, yeah.
But the issue wasn't the pandemic. The issue was the operating strategy. Almost immediately, the reports started coming in that Boston Market simply stopped paying its bills.
And when you say stop paying, do you mean they were late? Net 90 instead of net 30?
No, I mean they just stopped paying almost everyone. Total non-payment.
Who is everyone?
Suppliers, landlords, employees. It was a complete financial tailspin.
Let's start with the suppliers. You can't run a chicken restaurant without chicken.
Correct. And U.S. Foods, one of the biggest food distributors in the country, sued them. This was the big lawsuit.
July 2023.
U.S. Foods filed a suit claiming Boston Market owed them $11.3 million in unpaid food bills.
$11 million. That is a mountain of mashed potatoes. How do you rack up an $11 million tab without someone cutting you off sooner?
That is a valid question. But what's incredible is the legal defense, or the lack thereof.
Okay.
When this went to court, the Judge Manish Shah, had a very specific word for Boston Market's defense.
I have it right here. He called their defenses gossamer.
Gossamer.
It's a beautiful word.
It is. It refers to something very light, thin, and insubstantial, like a spider web or a fine fabric.
But not a word you want to hear from a federal judge regarding your legal argument.
No. He was basically saying their defense was made of thin air. They didn't dispute that they received the food. They didn't dispute the price. They just hadn't paid.
So they lost that lawsuit in February 2024. U.S. Foods won the $11.3 million judgment.
Yes. But by then, the damage was done. And it wasn't just the food, it was the roofs over their heads.
Landlords.
We saw evictions popping up all over the country. In Danbury, Connecticut, the landlord sued for over $61,000 in unpaid rent. Evicted.
In Detroit.
In November 2023, all Detroit area locations were permanently shuttered. Evicted.
In Connecticut again, the whole state.
All 8 remaining locations in the entire state of Connecticut closed and evicted in November 2023.
It's like a domino effect. But the part that really gets me, the part that makes this more than just a business story, is the labor crisis.
This is where it gets tragic. It's one thing to stiff a giant corporation like U.S. Foods. They have insurance, they have lawyers.
Right.
It's another thing to stiff the person serving the mac and cheese who is making minimum wage.
In New Jersey, the Department of Labor actually stepped in.
August 2023. The NJ Department of Labor issued stop work orders at 27 of the 31 Boston Market locations in the state.
Wait, explain a stop work order to me. That sounds intense. That sounds like something you do to a construction site that's about to collapse.
It is the nuclear option for a regulator. Usually if a business violates labor laws, they get fined, they get a warning. But a stop work order means the state sends agents or police to physically shut the business down. They lock the doors. You cannot operate.
And why did they do this?
Because the violations were so severe. They found Boston Market owed back pay of up to $607,471 to 314 employees.
$600,000 in unpaid wages.
Yes.
That is people's rent. That's groceries. That's car payments.
Exactly. An employee in Mercer County had filed a complaint back in November 2022 saying they hadn't been paid. That triggered the investigation. They found a pattern of failure to pay workers across the entire state.
And it wasn't just New Jersey.
No. Massachusetts in November 2023. Same story. Failure to pay workers, the state fined them heavily.
So picture this. You have no food coming in because you aren't paying U.S. Foods. You have no buildings because you aren't paying the landlords. And you have no staff because you aren't paying the workers, and the state has shut you down.
It is the definition of a collapse, a total systemic failure. And the numbers reflect that velocity.
Let's look at the store count freefall. Start of 2023.
About 300 locations.
End of 2023.
About 79 locations.
And end of 2024.
16.
16. From over 1,000 in the 90s to 16. That is basically a rounding error compared to where they were.
It is stunning. And amidst this collapse, the leadership was trying some bizarre maneuvers.
The franchise for free, Hail Mary.
Yes. On January 10th, 2024, the company announced that anyone, literally anyone, could open a franchise without the usual fees or buy-in requirements.
It sounds like a desperation move, like a late-night infomercial. Call now and get your own Boston Market.
It was. They were basically giving the brand away to try and keep the name alive. But think about it from a business perspective. Who would sign up for that?
No one.
Who would sign a contract with a parent company that is currently being sued by every major vendor in the country and has been evicted from entire states?
It's a liability, not an asset.
Exactly. And speaking of liabilities, the bankruptcy saga is confusing. They filed, then they didn't. It was a merry-go-round. In December 2023, Pangaea and Boston Market file for Chapter 11.
Okay, standard procedure for a failing company.
But in January 2024, the court dismissed it.
Why?
Because the company was unresponsive to the court. They just didn't reply to requests for documents and information.
They ghosted the bankruptcy court.
Essentially. Then, in February 2024, right after losing the U.S. Foods lawsuit, they filed for bankruptcy again.
Third time's the charm.
Apparently not. In September 2024, a judge dismissed their appeal regarding the U.S. Foods judgment, and the language the judge used was scathing.
Quote, bad faith, delay tactics, and willful disregard.
When a federal judge says you are acting in bad faith, you are in deep trouble. It means they believe you are abusing the legal system to delay the inevitable.
And yet, and this is the wildest part to me, amidst all this domestic destruction, there's a dot on the map on the other side of the world.
The India paradox.
While the U.S. chain is collapsing to fewer than 20 stores, they reportedly opened a new location in India in early 2024.
It defies logic. You cannot pay your workers in New Jersey, but you are cutting ribbons in New Delhi.
What does that even mean?
It speaks to the chaotic nature of the management during this period. It implies that maybe the brand asset still has value somewhere, even if the operational reality in the U.S. is utter ruin.
So what does this all mean? We have gone from the sensory joy of rotisserie chicken in Newton, Massachusetts, to gossamer legal defenses and stop work orders.
I think the lesson here is about the fragility of legacy. We assume brands like a Boston Market are permanent fixtures. They feel like part of the landscape.
They're just there.
But they are just collections of contracts, cash flows, and trust.
Trust seems to be the key word.
It is. If you leverage the company too high with debt, like they did in the 90s, you break trust with the future. If you strip the assets, like in the private equity era, you break trust with the customer. And if you simply stop paying your bills, like in the final era, you break trust with everyone, your lenders, your landlords, and your employees.
Once you break that trust, no amount of cornbread can fix it.
Well said.
So here's our final thought for you to chew on. Next time you're in the frozen food aisle, and you see that red and white Boston Market box.
Which is owned by Belizio Foods, remember?
Right. When you see that box, would you just see a quick dinner? Or will you see the ghost of an empire? An empire that once had 1,200 restaurants, convinced McDonald's to buy it, and tried to trademark the name of a major city, only to vanish into the ether of unpaid bills and bad faith.
It makes you wonder which other permanent brands are just one bad ownership change away from disappearing.
A scary thought.
Yeah.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.